Starting off in the C tier, yes, there are no F, E or D tier heroes anymore. I have Pharah. Now my opinion on Pharah hasn't really shifted, but I think she's more of a situational hero than a niche one. This tier list is meant to take into account all elos, and while she's like a B tier hero in lower elos, it's gonna be tough the higher you climb, especially if you don't have a pocket. After Pharah I have Roadhog, another situational hero. I don't think he was as bad as he was before the rework, and I think now he's definitely a bit better. He fits the niche of a defensive, area of denial tank hero with decent range. He struggles a lot into Sigma Mei, that's for sure, but if you're able to land your hooks and get value out of your pigpen, he's not half bad. After Hog I have Junkrat. He was very tough to put in either the C or the B tier because the burst damage in his one-shot combo and his Riptire can be very powerful, but it's also very inconsistent. If you haven't got the mechanics to hit the one-shots or to time your flanks correctly, he's gonna be tough to pick up. After Junkrat I have Wrecking Ball. The effort to reward ratio on Ball has always been a bit off. In the recent flash ops, Chasm, a Ball OTP, and his team did do very well, but for the average player and in most scenarios, Ball will remain a situational pick to disrupt rush comps. After Ball I have Sombra. Not a bad hero after the rework, but you really need to be surgical with your engages now, and ultimately, she's a situational hero against glass cannon comps. After Sombra I have Reaper. A hero who's always going to be stronger in lower elos compared to higher ones, he was a tough placement. To make him work higher up, you really need to know what you're doing, but in the lower ranks, he's more of a high B, low A tier pick. Ending off the C tier, I have Brigitte. It legitimately pains me putting her this low, but she really is in a situational state right now. In low elos, nobody knows how to play dive, so you don't need to play Brig. And in high elos, people just play some form of Sigma Mei, and Brig still isn't needed. You'll be fine with her in ranks, but there's just more efficient options. Before I continue, if you want to get the best private coaching around, hit me up in the link below and check out my private coaching to see that I'm the real deal. Starting off in the B tier, I have Weaver. I want to start off by saying that in high elo or in team play, this guy is kind of trash and I did not see a single team use Weaver in the recent Flash Ops tournaments. But in ranked, he's still pretty good, especially in the lower elos, and he's easy to farm stats on, so it's a bit of a tough placement. After Weaver I have Winston. In pro play he's not a great pick, but in ranked, he's usually a reliable decent hero. Unfortunately, a lot of lower level players don't often know what they're doing with Winston and how to outplay his counters, which is why I'm putting him in the low end of B tier. After Winston I have Zen. He got quite a big change to his kit, with a big buff to his HP and Harmony Orb, but a big nerf to his Discord. Honestly, I think Zen saw the better bit of this change. He's more tanky against dive, and if you're being dove or rushed on, the Discord change doesn't really matter. It's more so in the pre-fight where the Discord nerf can be felt. After Zen I have Torb. The fire rate nerfs were quite significant, and coupled with his turret nerfs, the casty buffs, and dive not being that strong, there's just not too much of an incentive to run Torb. If Sombra Tracer Winston COIs, then Torb could be pulled out more. After Torb I have Ryan. The margins on this tier list are very slim, and with heroes like Ryan, their placement is dependent upon the other tanks in this list. Sure, he has a fairly good matchup against Sigma, but he really struggles against Orisa, Bastion, Genji comps. In general rank though, similar to Mercy, you'll be fine running Ryan. Speaking of Mercy, she's up next. My reasoning for putting Mercy in the B tier is that in ranked, you can often get away with a Mercy even if it's not optimal. As long as you're able to amplify someone's aggression while still being safe, she's genuinely a decent pick. Next up I have Moira. Moira's always had a split between pro play and ranked because of her two different playstyles, and I actually had a great VOD review that dove into a lot of the Moira nuances. I'll keep it short and say that if you know when to duel on Moira, you're going to see a lot of success. After Moira I have Ashe, a solid hit scan with not much to dislike. Just that in other scenarios, you might want to have a soldier on a more open map with more flanks, Casti or Torb against Daria comps, and Hanzo if you value the one shot and mobility. After Ashe I have Cassidy. The biggest issue with Cass is really the range because everything else in his kit is great. He's got the versatility to play in almost any comp in the game, but likewise to Ashe, he's almost a jack of all trades, master of none kind of situation. After Cass I have Zarya. Didn't really see many teams play Zarya during flash ops, if any, despite her being better than Sigma in a one-on-one matchup, and that is mainly due to Zarya's lack of sustain. If you get walled, you're pretty much dead. In ranked, I think she's a pretty good answer for most tanks, but in coordinated play or against Sigma Mei, you might want to switch it up. After Zarya I have Ramattra. People have just seemingly forgotten about his Nemesis form buff. His only issue is against Sigma, he's kind of trash because you just get rocked while you're blocking and you just die afterwards. Talented Sigma players will also do more than Ramattra against dive comps, but I'll talk about that when we get onto Sigma. After Ram, I have Widowmaker. Similar to Bull and other heroes on this list, Widow is always tough to place because the average player isn't going to pick up Widowmaker and all of a sudden start hitting their shots. A tier if you can, D tier if you can't. Not to mention, she's not that popular in team play right now. After Widow, I have D.Va, and I know some of you might think she's terrible, and in this current meta, you kinda are correct. Sigma's rocket is just that strong, but in ranked, when you can mark pocketed DPS in a split second, there's no tank better for that than D.Va. If you want to hit GM, D.Va is still a great option. After D.Va, I have Orisa. Again, likewise to Ram, Sigma is really the main problem, because you can't spear spin in, as he's just gonna rock you out of it. Still, in ranked, you will be fine 95% of the time, and get just as much value as the tanks above her. Ending off the B tier, I have Bastion. Obviously, an absolute noob stomper in low elos, and still not that bad in high elos actually. Some Brawl teams actually like running Sigma Mei Bastion, but unfortunately, he's a bit limited on some maps, especially if you can't get value out of your turrets. Starting off in the A tier, I have Hanzo. If you can manage to land his arrows at least somewhat consistently, Hanzo's a good pickup because of how flexible he can be. Likewise to other DPS in this tier, you can easily slide into the Sigma Saudi comp and pairs pretty well with Iliari. Next up I have Soldier. Not gonna talk about this one much, he's always a good ranked option and can even be played in the Saudi Arabia comp if you really wanted to. After Soldier I have Symmetra, the secret broken hero that nobody still knows how to play. The 2-shot goes crazy, the TP goes crazy, and the turrets go crazy. Well, sometimes at least. After Symmetra I have Kiriko, a hero that's designed to pocket aggressive, mobile DPS, whilst also being able to peel off enemy aggression at a moment's notice. The main issue is a lack of her own DPS, which Iliari and Baptiste have in spades. After Kiriko, I have Doomfist. He's honestly in a similar state to Widowmaker and Wrecking Ball, a hero with such high potential as we saw with Gushui and Team China in the World Cup, but one slip up, one rock, or one Mei wall, and your entire team loses the fights. Though, with that being said, in lower elos, players don't punish you for feeding nearly as much as they do in pro play, so I'm taking the Kaku stance and putting him in A tier. Following Doom, I have Sojourn, a reliable, flexible, and fluid DPS hero that pairs well with Mercy in ranked poke comps, or with more mobile, brawl-based comps. If you can't get GM with this hero, it's a skill issue. In a similar place to Sojourn, I have Genji. Again, super versatile and flexible. Only issue is that he's not easy to pick up, but he can be very rewarding if learnt. Quite strong in the current meta right now, but in your everyday rank games and on certain maps, it's gonna be tough to make Mei work. She's great in most situations though. If you hit your knives consistently, you will get more value than 90% of tanks in the game. Good hitbox, great ultimate, great damage, and solid sustain. Only really struggling against the Sigma Mei stuff. After Queen, I have Lucio. Go watch my Lucio guide, and you'll understand why he's one of the most flexible supports in the game. After Lucio, I have Echo. Simply put, the better, more flexible aerial hero compared to Pharah. With high amounts of consistent and burst damage, a great ultimate and solid mobility, it's hard to find many situations where Echo isn't at least a decent pick. Next up is Baptiste. Mid-season support nerfs did fuck all to this guy, let's move on. After Bap, I have Iliari. Saw a small nerf to our pylon, but ultimately it did nothing if we're being real. The carry potential is crazy in both ranked and in team play, and ultimately, this hero allowed Saudi Arabia to win the World Cup. That should be enough to tell you that she's a bloody good hero. Now entering the S tier, and there's a few switch ups this time around. In third place, I have Tracer. I think in ranked, Tracer is S tier, but in team play, she's around A tier, maybe even B tier in some scenarios. She's still very strong for map control, has one of the highest rewards in the game, and honestly, you don't even need to put in that much to get a lot out of Tracer for most players. In second place, I have Ana. Again, a 2-second cooldown nerf doesn't fundamentally change why Nade is so powerful. The duration of Nade needs to be nerfed for Ana to go below A tier, and the best part about Nade is that it's really not that hard to land. With Genji, Widowmaker, Baptiste, Lucio, and other heroes with the high rewards, you at least need solo mechanics to get anything out of them. With Nade, it's literally just a button press. Time it correctly, and with decent placements, you're at least getting a good CD trade. And now, in first place, I have Sigma. I think Raw teams have mainly learned that Sigma's Rock can prevent the aggression of most Brawl tanks in the game, and Sigma's Grasp can absorb a lot of the damage he takes during a wall cycle. His ultimate is also great, and while Sigma might not be great against dive on paper, if you can hit your shots onto a Tracer or onto a Genji before they dive, that can entirely fuck up their engage. And that's it for the lists. Let me know your thoughts down below, and until next time.